Is there more of a quarterback battle than we anticipated heading into the 2023 football season?
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Folks, once again, we are coming to you live from Nashville, Tennessee at SEC Media Days. Coach Fisher just got done up on the big stage here a few hours ago, and we're going to break down kind of what happened today. And the biggest takeaway for me was I really think there might be more of a quarterback battle than I and many around the college football community anticipated. I felt like if you had to ask me my confidence level on Conner Weigman being the Aggies starting quarterback this season, I would say 99.9. I mean, I was very confident in that becoming a reality. And then, I think when you watch a coach talk, we say the word coach speak a lot. But for what Coach Fisher did today, talking about the quarterbacks, it really felt like it wasn't coach speech. It felt like he made multiple comments saying things kind of along the lines of like, well, I was impressed by Max Johnson and Conner Weigman. There was multiple things that stand out to them. There's multiple things about their play style, what they do that stands out to me, and made it very clear that this is an open competition to win the starting job for the Aggies this season. And like I said, folks, I was not expecting that. Now, it could be coach speech, and Coach Fisher could have just sold it well. Like I said, I still think that Conner Weigman is going to be the Aggie starting quarterback this season. I feel very confident in that, but I definitely, like I'd say my feeling about it went down from 99.9 to like 90. So, and you wonder, it's like we've broken down the spring game. We've broken down all the different, things that we've seen these two quarterbacks compete. We've talked a little bit about last year, what we saw from Weigman last year, what we saw from Max Johnson last year. And I think the real takeaway from media days for me is that, like, folks, there's I think a storyline to follow over these next few months. And, we are a few months away from the start of the season when the Aggies take on New Mexico. And it's going to be interesting to see who's going to run out there. And, I think the thing about it is I still think it's Conner Weigman's job to lose. I really do. But I do think all in all, this is a positive thing. And the reason I say this, we've talked about the iron sharpens iron kind of analogy here a ton on Locked On Aggies. But it's genuine. I think, Conner Weigman, let's say he's at home today playing, video games, and he looks on his phone and he sees Coach Fisher talking about how this is a battle and how he's been impressed by both quarterbacks, and it'll be interesting to see who starts. I think to me, it's like that motivates you. That motivates you to be a better player. That motivates you to work harder on a practice-to-practice, day-to-day, game-to-game basis. And, I think that is a good thing. I think it makes Weigman better. I think it makes Max Johnson better. But the other thing that Aggie fans need to remember is that you have a solid backup quarterback in Max Johnson, assuming it pans out that way, and then take it the other way. You have a solid backup quarterback in Conner Weigman if Max Johnson were to win that job. So I think the thing that stands out to me here from the, that little part of what Coach Fisher went up and talked about was, like I said, I was not expecting this. I went on a couple radio shows today, and that was the two main questions were Coach Petrino and quarterback stuff. And I got asked that exact question. They asked me, what is your confidence level that Weigman starts? And I said, listen, folks, going into today, it was 90. It was high, just like I told you all. And then I said after this, it went down a little bit to where I'm a little, I wouldn't say concerned, but interested to see what is going to kind of pan out with the quarterback battle. So, we have a lot of fun stuff to talk about today that Coach Fisher set up on stage. Some things he didn't stay up on stage. I talked to some players, so we might save that for tomorrow. I talked to Fidel Diggs and McKinley Jackson. We might save that for tomorrow. It kind of just depends how we get going here. But so, the quarterback battle, it's funny because I'm still having to try and decide, would I consider this a battle? Would I use the term to define it a battle. And I don't know if I'm quite there yet. I think I might still lean toward it's Weigman's job to lose. And that's how I feel about the situation. But, I do think it makes me, and then hearing from players too, Fadil Diggs was saying this, McKinley Jackson was saying this, Anaya Smith was saying this. I feel, the players are talking about how this is a genuine battle. So it's like, I really think that this is something that we kind of need to open our eyes to, and I've had some comments, folks. I've had some people saying, hey, watch out for Max Johnson. And you know what? I might be wrong here. I know, because I've been explaining my confidence of how I think it's Weigman's job to lose, and which I still think that's the case, but I think it's a closer battle than I had kind of imagined, like I said. So, folks, some people in the comments, like I said, have been saying that. So, hey, kudos to you if that's you saying it. Kudos to you for saying that, because it seems like you're right, and I think that is kind of my early thought here. Is what are these next 2 months going to look like when everybody's back on campus, when the coaches are back with players and all that different stuff. It's like, how is this all going to shape itself out? And that's what's so fun about college football is, like, at the end of the day, we have so many storylines that we get to talk about, one of which being the quarterbacks. And, I just think that's going to be interesting. Now, if you want to talk about upside, ceiling, and floor, I feel like Max Johnson might be a safer floor play this season. Now, I'm going to make my classic fantasy football joke. I always do. Well, not really joke, but the way I play fantasy football, it is a joke. But I think that, like I said, I think the I think the floor for Max Johnson, I think he can give you a baseline. I think he can go out there and give you 7-8 wins. I fully believe that. But I think the floor, I might have said it backwards. I'm talking about the floor if I didn't say that, folks. But the floor is safe for Max Johnson. But I think the ceiling for Conner Weigman, I think, is through the freaking roof, folks. I think if he pans out, you got to remember this is I was having a beer with some of my colleagues here last night, and we were talking about quarterback rankings, and the guy I was on the radio with today, a guy by the name of Jacob, he was talking about how he had Weigman at 9, and I was like, no, come on, 9 is not the right spot. And he was like, okay, then change my mind. And we debated about it, we talked about it. He made some good points. I think I made some good points, and it's like, I think people forget that this guy's a former 5-star recruit. This is a former highly ranked guy out of high school in Weigman that, kind of got thrown into a tough situation last year. Being a young guy, I made the joke. I make this one a lot, but it's like, he was at his prom like 2 months before, and now he's in a Texas A&M uniform trying to play football in front of hundreds of thousands of trillions of people. It's not an easy situation to be in. He got thrown into the fire a little bit last year, and I think you're going to kind of see him take that like sophomore leap, because I think he's older, more mature. Flat out, I just think things are going to look better for Weigman this year. So I do still think Weigman wins the job, but genuinely, folks, I really do think there might be more of a battle than we're anticipating, and that's going to be a kind of fun thing to follow. So, like, I'll give you an example. When Brian Kelly was up on stage, actually a colleague of mine, Mike, asked if Jayden Daniels is the guy. Is he the starter? Is there any question? And Coach Kelly, said, yeah, Jayden Daniels is our starting quarterback. And I kind of had a feeling that someone might ask Jimbo that, might ask him Weigman's your guy, right? And no one really asked it more general like that. But somebody asked the question kind of relating to Weigman and Petrino, and we're going to talk about Petrino here a little bit later. But and he kind of deflected it to talking about the quarterback room as a whole, and that, like I said, that is what to me stood out, that this might be a genuine battle. It's like, because if you have your guy, if you have your quarterback, you're going to say that. You're not going to be afraid to say, yeah, Conner Weigman is our guy. He's our guy. It's a done deal. So I really feel like, just like Brian Kelly did today for LSU and Jayden Daniels, I think if Weigman was the guy, I think Jimbo would have said something today. Because if there's not a quarterback battle, why are you making a quarterback battle out of a non-quarterback battle? So I think it's genuine, folks. Now, I do still think Weigman wins it. I'm going to stick with that until the end. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, folks, and I'll tell you. But I think Weigman wins the job, but I do think this is going to be a little bit more interesting than we had kind of anticipated going into this football season. So I got to ask Coach Fisher a question on the big stage here at SEC Media Days. It was an interesting one, and he kind of he answered a question that we've raised a lot here on Locked On Aggies, and it sounds like he kind of agrees with what I've been saying. We're going to talk about that coming up next, right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I love FanDuel, folks. It's a great place to bet. I love the fact that you get your money immediately. You can pull it straight out. I like that they have great lines. They have great numbers. I love the futures bets. I love prop bets. I've never really enjoyed like betting money lines, betting. I've always loved prop bets. Like, is DeAndre Hopkins? He's fresh in the mind because we're here in Nashville, and he just signed up with the Titans. But is Hopkins going to have 79.5 higher or lower on his receiving yard line, and that's the kind of lines I enjoy. So, hey, if you like stuff like that, prop bets, or if you like futures bets, there's a lot of college football futures bets you could do, or just like we're talking about here, some of the MLB stuff. So FanDuel is the best. You all have got to go look over there. I promise you will not regret it. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 back in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. So, folks, the question that I got to ask Jimbo, which was an interesting one, I wanted to know about, well, it's funny. Originally, I was going to ask a question kind of relating to Weigman and Coach Petrino. Somebody kind of beat me to that, but I'm a little happy I didn't end up asking that one. And we're going to talk about that, why I say that here in a minute. But I asked about the running back room. So I got up and I said, Coach Fisher, Devon Achane takes a lot of carries and a lot of snaps with him to the NFL from this Aggie team last year. So, you're losing a lot of production at the running back position. Of course, you have Amari Daniels, you have Le'Veon Moss, and you have the true freshman Rueben Owens. So I basically just asked him, Coach, tell us about your thoughts on the room. Who's looking good? Who's going to do what? That's kind of the premise of what I asked him up there. And I thought his answer really, is what we've been saying here. I've been talking about how I think this is going to be a room that everybody's eating, everybody's getting carries, everybody's getting yards, everybody's doing stuff to help the team succeed. And I think that is going to come to fruition, like based off his answer. So what Coach kind of said was he thinks that these guys, they have interesting abilities. Some of them have some similar abilities. Some of them have different ones. But at the end of the day, he thinks that they all can be successful running backs for the Aggies this season. And in the system Coach Petrino likes to run, like I've talked about, Coach Petrino really likes to spread the ball around to running backs. He likes to keep people healthy. He likes to, like I said, let everybody eat. And I think that's the kind of the way that Coach Fisher explained it up on stage. He really made that feel like that's accurate. So it makes me feel better. No, because, I thought about saying, like, is there going to be like the guy? And I think he really made it sound like it's going to be a stable of running backs all doing their job. And that's what it really looks like to me. So I think that we're going to kind of see that. We're going to see those running backs, and we're going to see all those guys we talked about, Moss, Rueben Owens, and Amari Daniels. I think you're going to see all of them get work. And I think it's not going to be like last year when you look up last year and Achane has 1.5 million carries, and then you look at Moss and Daniels and they both have 26 carries, 24 carries, not a ton of carries between them. So I think it's not going to be like that this year. I think it's going to be way more spread between everybody, which I think is a good thing. I do. I think it's a good thing in the fact that you want everybody, you want to keep people healthy. That was a big problem for the Aggies last season, was keeping your players on the field. You lose Anaya Smith, you lose Bryce Foster, you lose 1.5 million quarterbacks. People get hurt, it'll kill you. And I think spreading the load when it comes to the running backs and when it comes to receivers and stuff, I think it's going to keep people healthy for a potential college football playoff run, SEC championship run, whatever it ends up being for the Aggies this season. It keeps your team healthy, and that's a good thing. So I think that Oh, they went Vanderbilt coach Clark Lee right behind me. I do think it is that's an interesting note that Coach Fisher gave, and I was excited to hear. I wasn't expecting him to come out and be like, yeah, Le'Veon Moss is going to be our guy. He's going to be this year's Achane. Obviously, when I say that, I mean like workload wise. So I think that was a little exciting that we know that everybody's going to be getting work. You're going to be seeing a lot of guys doing different things. I think that Coach Fisher feels confident that we have a stable of running backs who are able to do different things, which is, you have to have a guy who can catch passes. And Coach Fisher talked a little bit about that. You have to have a guy who can catch passes. You have to have a guy who can be a bruiser. And this is interesting. David Bailey, former, he played at Colorado State under offensive line coach Steve Adazio, is, the transfer. We didn't know what his role was going to look like, but, hey, Coach Fisher brought his name up, and that to me was interesting. Now, I've talked about they might use him in like a short yardage situation because he's like a bowling ball. He's kind of like plays the game like Mike Tolbert. I mean, not really, but, he can play that style of football that just bang, the defensive line and get you 3 yards. So, David Bailey, I think that was it was interesting that he brought that up. I wasn't expecting that, to be honest with you. I was expecting the 3 names that we've been talking about a lot on this show to be the guys that, got all the shout outs from Coach. So, the running back room, I do think is going to be a big time strength of this football team. So I'm excited about that. And I've seen a lot of people disagree on that, which is fair, but I just think you got a lot of talent star wise. Rueben Owens is, I think, going to be one of the best freshman running back in the country. We talked about that on the show. We're like, could he have a Quinshawn Judkins-esque season? I don't think he's going to get that kind of usage, but I think like maybe a yards per attempt kind of thing. He could be similar and look similar. So I think you have one of the best true freshman running backs in the country in Rueben Owens. And I think you have 2 talented older guys in Le'Veon Moss and Amari Daniels. So it was interesting to see Coach talk about the running back room. It's a room that, it's deep, but we don't really know what everybody's role is going to look like. So I'm glad to hear, that we're going to see a lot of these guys. Everybody's going to be getting touches. And I think it's going to lead to healthy running backs all season long, which is a really good thing. And like I said, it's interesting that we heard about David Bailey because, folks, I was not expecting that, but it's a good thing to hear. I think it proves depth. There's a stable of running backs, a whole bunch of guys who can come in and do the job well, and a whole bunch of guys who can do different things. That's what's going to lead this running back room to, I think, being one of the better running back rooms in the country, assuming the offensive line does well, which we'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about some of my player interviews. So a lot to look forward to, folks, when it comes to the Aggies running the football this season. And I think it's going to be a pretty good year running behind, hopefully, a new and a much better offensive line in 2023. So what did Coach Fisher have to say about Coach Petrino up on stage? Folks, it was a little interesting what he said up on stage about how this is going to work with Coach Petrino. So we're going to talk about that coming up next, right here on Locked On Aggies. Yeah, folks, this one, when it comes to the Coach Petrino thing, so I went on the radio this morning before Coach Fisher went on stage, and then I went on the radio after. And it's funny because my opinion on things changed. I think everybody has kind of assumed and felt that the play calling duties are going to be handed over to Coach Petrino. That's been the belief. I felt that. I still feel that way, but Coach Fisher was asked about it on multiple occasions, and what stood out to me was he was very hesitant to kind of answer the question. And so to me, it was like, why would you be hesitant? And it's the same thing kind of talking about the quarterback battle. It's like if I think the hesitation is concerning because it's like, if I'm going to have a hand on the offense, it's just going to be Coach Petrino. All we want is an answer. We're going to be okay with it either way. You're the head coach. We trust you. But people want answers. People want to know what this is going to look like. And he didn't really give that to you. It's going to be this kind of thing where, like, when everything's said and done, I think the season's going to start, and then it's going to be Petrino, or it's going to be Fisher, or it's going to be a combination of both of them. And, folks, I don't think we're going to know. I don't think we're going to get a definite report until, like, a post-game interview after the first game coming up here in a few months. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting situation. And, that was, I think, one of the biggest takeaways for me from this whole conversation, besides from this whole him up on the podium, besides the quarterback talk. So I don't I find it very weird the way he answered that question. Now I get it. It's like you don't have to. He was talking about how it's like strategic. We're not going to talk about how we play football. We're not going to talk about how we're not going to talk about how we do things. We want to have an advantage on the competition. But I don't think saying like who's going to be running the offense really gives the other team any kind of advantage. So, I don't think teams are going to be looking at media days clip when they're preparing for a game saying, okay, well, now we know they're, so I don't know if I agree with him there with Coach Fisher's take there, but I do think Coach Fisher did a good job up there. I think that he answered questions well. Coach Fisher's Coach Fisher. You like him or you don't, and I think he did a good job up there. I was impressed with some of the things he said. It was good to hear about, and I'm tired of the NIL questions. I don't know, folks. Maybe you might find those interesting. To me, I don't. And it's funny. I was talking to McKinley Jackson. It was the same thing. I was asking him football questions, and there's somebody sitting there talking about NIL. McKinley, tell me about that. And it's just like, and he was saying that he was like, I don't want to talk about that. He doesn't want. They want to talk about football, and that's what frustrates me. So, I think Coach Fisher did a good job answering football questions. He got so many silly. Questions, and that's part of this. That's why I feel like people don't respect media days is because the media doesn't do a good job of keeping it about what it should be about, which is the game of football, the game we love, the game we're here to talk about these coaches, about their teams, about their players. So, that always frustrates me because that's what this should be about. And that's a little annoying, but it is what it is. But my point is, I think Coach Fisher did a good job answering questions, besides some of the NIL stuff. But I mean, it's just not, it shouldn't be talked about. I think he did a great job answering football related questions. He gave me a great answer to the running back question I had. It was, helpful. It made me feel good about stuff we talked about here on the show. I really appreciated him giving me a solid answer. So, I was impressed with everything Coach Fisher did up there. And, so that's really all he had to do. He did give a shout out to some of the true freshmen. He's been impressed with the true freshmen, and I think that's a positive thing. I think you want this 2023 class. And he talked about that, how like people have been kind of down on our 2023 class, obviously compared to the 2022 class and how good that class was. He said, watch out for this 2023 class, folks. We have some players in this class that are going to come out and impress some people. Talked about some of the young receivers, some of the young offensive linemen, Hicks. I mean, he talked about all of these guys. So that was something I was excited to hear because, you don't get to hear a lot about some of these late enrollees and stuff like that. But I think this 2023 class is going to be one that maybe it wasn't ranked as high, but I think it's still going to end up being a dang good class. So that was the premise of really everything Coach said. And we're gonna have some crossover shows. I'm gonna record with Locked On Auburn host Zach Blackerby and talk a little bit about that matchup with how big of a game it is as the SEC opener for the Aggies. So we're gonna get into some fun stuff the rest of this week. But like I said, folks, that is gonna do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. A lot more fun coming to you. Like I said, I got video of me interviewing Fadil Diggs and McKinley Jackson. We'll put some of that on the show either tomorrow or the following day. So we'll have that coming for you. We'll have some other interviews. We'll talk to like I said, we'll talk to Zach with Locked On Auburn. So a lot of fun coming up this week, folks. I really appreciate you sticking here with me. We're getting close. Football season, it is right around the corner, and there is nobody more excited than this guy right here. Like I said, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and we will see you tomorrow.